Okay, hello everyone. Sorry about that earlier. I am at the beach. I am at a place called Malibu, California, Zuma Beach. And I'm feeling much better now. Princess Dan is, satiated. And I'm just trying to enjoy myself, because I'll tell you what, yesterday I made a video that I think a lot of people sort of were concerned because it seemed like it was uncharacteristically, shall we say, vulnerable, or uncharacteristically real, real talk. I heard a lot of people say that's so real, which I thought was interesting. And I guess the truth is, yeah, it was, because that all happened, and it's interesting because most people, they have a bad morning. Those thoughts maybe go through their head that I was having, which were very negative, nihilistic thoughts. But then they go away and you move on with your day, and it's done. But I made the conscious choice to record and sort of try to preserve those thoughts, upload them, onto the internet. And then to everybody who watched that video, that small 20-minute window of my life that I captured on film, not film, I wish it was film, but it was video. Pretty good 4K video though, right? Thank you, Sony. If Sony wants to set up any kind of, this is a sponsorship if they want it to be. Sony, I love your products, and I would love to set something up. Sony. But yeah, that's sort of a 20-minute window of my life, preserved in amber. To everybody who watched it, that's all that I am. And even if, yes, you've seen the other videos, you know who I am, or you whatever. In that moment in time that you're watching that is all the context you have. You don't have the context of the rest of the day. I totally forgot about it and I did something else, And I think that that's something that throughout all of my videos on the internet, especially the ones that sort of were like, I hate being a therapist. My students are all morons. I saw my grandmother pleasing herself. All of the I came during a job interview, which, by the way, there's a meme that goes around that is somebody photoshopped the thumbnail of me saying, I accidentally came at a job interview, and they put the N-word, which is just totally abhorrent to me. I would never say that. So the caption then was, I accidentally said the N-word at a job interview. I would never say that. And I would never even joke about that. And that's horrible. So if any of you see that, not my authorial intent. But anyway. What's good is that, I don't know if you can see in the high definition 4K video, thanks to Sony, but there's a lot of trash over there. There's a little yogurt, and I think that because of that, people have been avoiding that area next to me, so I've had a great view to film. Thank you, Sony. Okay, you know what? I really should put on some sunscreen because I'm getting old, frankly. I mean, I just am. I saw a comment yesterday that was like, Dan, please wear sunscreen because you're aging. And I was like, well, there ain't no sunscreen in the world that's going to stop that. But I suppose I can still try to mitigate it as much as I can. The reason I wanted to make this video is because I love the beach. Okay, how am I going to do this? I love the beach. Because I captured that moment that was, I'm trying to talk into the microphone. I have the microphone here, so I'm trying to, yesterday, a moment that was very sort of, you know, the hell did I do? What did I do? Oh, the lifeguard keeps telling the people can move over there that way. Because right now, I am sitting in a place that my entire life, without exaggeration, really, looks like I'm trying to suck my own dick. Well, I guess I might have to use this as a mirror to know where I've applied first. Okay. I used to, when I was in high school, it was always my dream to move to LA. And it was always my dream to, I guess, be famous, but you know, I had every morning when I would go to school, I had bookmarked a webcam that technically, it was a live webcam, of a girl getting spanked. No, it was that view over there. I can't point the camera there because the lighting's not as good, but every morning I would watch it, and I'd see the beautiful, you know, California cliffs and beach, and I would say, one day I'm gonna fucking be there. One of these fucking days, that's gonna be me. And I tell that to people, and they're sort of amazed because they're like, wow, so you literally just achieved your dreams. You're living the dream. And I have a sort of a moment where I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I am. Which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And I guess I wanted to make a video about that. And I don't really know exactly what that is, but I guess basically a video about how I am literally doing exactly what I had always dreamed of doing. And that's just crazy because I wasn't a Nepo baby, you know. People have accused me a lot of things, but I had no prior connection to California or entertainment. I mean, I grew up in Maryland, and you know, California, I think a lot of people, when you get out here, they don't really understand sort of the mythical status that California has somewhere like the East Coast, you know, the Mid-Atlantic. It's kind of like the land of milk and honey, you know. But to that end, it seems so unattainable. It just seems so far away and so impossible that, you know, it's a totally different world. It's a completely different world in every way. It's a totally different universe. And even every time I go back, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. And whenever I go back, I always get this sort of strange anxiety that I'm not going to be able to get back, you know, that it's all going to go away. Because, sorry, this is not intended to be like a sexy video, but it's sort of, I just need to put on sunscreen. And it's part of my, if you can tell, there's a theme here of me being vulnerable, so that part of that is represented in the lathering of myself in sun lotion for everybody to see. So I'm always afraid that it's gonna kind of go away, or because I wanted it so bad. And I got it. And yet, I still have a lot of moments where, like yesterday, with the car insurance. Oh shit. I just realized I'm using the face sunscreen for the chest. That's alright. So, yeah, I guess I should do the feet too. Sorry, but you're not seeing the feet unless you can see it. Can you see my feet? I don't think so. I still have moments like yesterday morning where I realize that, because it's a very strange thing when you basically get what you wanted. I mean, I always had pretty big dreams, and I still do. I wouldn't say that I was an ambitious person, because that's not really the truth. I just had, fantasies. I guess maybe that's ambition, but I was never the type of person to be like, I am going to climb the ladder. I know this is exactly what I want to do. I know exactly how to get there. I just got to grind and do it. I was always just sort of like, I want it so badly, but it seems so unattainable that I'm just going to give up. You know what I just realized? I bet a lot of people probably see the camera and they don't want to go right there because they're going to be on camera. Good. Now I'm just going to warn you ahead of time, I do want to go in the water at some point. Maybe in a couple minutes. It's a very, very strange thing, because at some point around, I never thought that I would be a content creator. I never thought that this is exactly what I would be doing. But it's sort of just the way that it worked out. And if you've been watching my content a lot, you've probably noticed that I'm starting to kind of shift into different things because all of a sudden it was like I realized a couple of years ago. It wasn't until a couple of years ago it all happened kind of all of a sudden, And I was like, oh my God, holy shit, I might actually be able to do this. I had never thought before, it was a fantasy. I hoped and I dreamed, but I never thought for a second I could actually do this. And every time I think about that, I get sort of butterflies in my stomach, because it's like, what if it actually happens? And like I said, I still don't really know what it is. Huh. Okay, I think I am going to go in the water. Alright. Where to put the microphone? I guess I could put it... I'm just going to stick it up in the sand here. Okay. Hey everybody, this is Dan from the future. I am currently sitting at the computer editing this video, and I wanted to record some voiceover for this section just because it's quite a long time to go without any speaking. Firstly, I wanted to clarify, you maybe are seeing some... Okay, hang on, I'm about to say something. Make sure nobody steals this stuff. Oh, that's funny. You may have noticed that I have some blue residue on my face and head and in my ears. That is because I was filming some things as the Blue Gentleman earlier this morning. Anyway, I figured while I'm going in the water, I could discuss some interesting things about the geography of where I am currently. So one of the biggest differences between the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, at least with respect to the U.S. coastlines, is that the Pacific Ocean is a lot colder because there's a current running down from the Arctic to the equator, and it's the total opposite on the Atlantic coast because you have the Gulf Stream, which is a current that runs up from the equator, and that's one of the reasons why. Well, it's basically the reason why everything is the way that it is. Ocean currents, I would say, are probably the single most important geographic factor on our planet. But that being said, the water only gets to about 68 degrees Fahrenheit in the height of the summer here, which I'm about to discuss a little bit more once I sit down, I think. And then in the Atlantic, it can get up to, 80 or so. Okay, all right, I'm going to go.
Okay. That was interesting, I guess.
Okay, that's pretty cold. But not as bad as I thought it would be. They say, that the ocean in California, depending on who you ask, some people will say it's too cold to swim, but I don't think so. And some people don't want to swim because of the pollution, but it's fine. They just say as long as you don't go in, 2 or 3 days after it's rained, after the last rain, then you should be fine. Can you see me? Can you still? I just feel like you can't see me. No, I guess you can. God damn it. Oh, I got sunscreen in my eyes. I might have to go in again. No, I think it'll be fine. Okay, where was I? I'm also interested to see if... Okay. Alright. Okay, we're good. So... when I was in high school, I never liked school. I got pretty good grades up until a certain point around the middle of high school when I started to kind of have some of the thoughts. Around 14 and 15, I think I sort of was developing a mature brain. And along with that came the mental illnesses and things and problems that... I don't know, whatever you want to call it. People now tell me, I think you probably just had ADHD when you were in high school and nobody diagnosed you because they didn't think that existed. Honestly, I think it's just because I was right. All of it is fucking dumb. You shouldn't have to do it. You shouldn't have to do that stupid work. It doesn't make any sense. The only point of school is to train you for having a 9-to-5 job. To sort of hammer you into being a good little... soldier for capitalism. And I don't think realizing that meant that I had a mental illness. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like an anti-vaxxer here because I'm not, but I think you have to remember that a lot of times, this might be a little bit of a truth nuke here, but mental illnesses as we understand them really are from the lens of capitalist society. So mental illnesses refer to whatever inhibits our ability to function in a capitalist system. And you have to remember that. It's not necessarily, your diagnosis for whatever you have isn't necessarily about you. It's not a quality of your identity. It's more about what makes it difficult for you to work at a desk or, do your schoolwork or work in the sewer, Because all of my problems only arise when that happens, I'm dysfunctional when I'm trying to keep track of my auto insurance. But I don't know. So anyway, I guess with that context, from that perspective, yes, I did not enjoy school, and I would sort of ask people, what is the point of this? Why do I have to do this? Especially because, I'll be honest, I grew up I knew that I was born with some creative talent, such that I knew that probably I would be able to make it on that. And so I said pretty straight up, I was like, I don't really think I need to go to college. Which I was born into sort of a very privileged upbringing where if you say that, that's like saying, you're a terrorist. That's like a really taboo thing, I brought it up a couple times. I said, I don't think it would serve me very well. Frankly, I think it'd be a waste of money. And now I have student loan debt because ultimately I was still underage, so I didn't really... That's kind of what's crazy also about college is that, you're supposed to make all these decisions when you're like 16. It just blows my mind. So, I knew from a pretty young age I wanted no part of that. And so I went to an art school, which I think if you ask some people, particularly those people who maybe were not able to make it, because I do think art schools can be very predatory in the sense that they lie to you or certainly mislead you about, especially SCAD, because that's where I went. SCAD, I think, certainly is intentionally misleading, mostly its the parents and the students, about the employability that they're going to have when they graduate. That's sort of their whole focus, is like, this is how your kid can turn their passion into a career and make a living and not live in your basement. Which is certainly possible, but, I majored in dramatic writing, which was basically screenwriting. The fact that anybody at that school could look at you with a straight face and say, yeah, you are going to be able to get a job after you graduate in screenwriting. All 100 of you who were in the class. Give me a break. There were really only, from my graduating class, there's only maybe 3 or 4 of us that ended up actually moving out to LA. And I don't even technically work in the industry. I guess it depends how you define it, because the entertainment industry, like I insinuated in the Forest Green Goober video, is sort of falling apart now. But, I think that it was definitely the only time that it's interesting, because I would say that I'm more like my teenage self now than I am like my early 20s self. And I always tell people that your early 20s are probably the worst time of your life, because they're the point in your life where it all sort of hits you like a ton of bricks that you don't have a choice. You sort of have to hack it out and find a way to pay your bills. And some people learn that earlier, but for the most part, that's kind of the come to Jesus moment. And so for me, that was when I gave up the most, quote unquote gave up, where I was like, well, that was a nice dream, maybe one day, but it's just not going to happen. And that was the time in my life that I was sort of most miserable. Anyway, I moved out to Los Angeles because I had a friend who lived out here, and this person was a lot more ambitious than I was, in the sense that I was sort of referring to at the beginning of the video, you know, where they very much knew exactly what they had to do to make it happen, and they were going to do that, and they had no trouble, you know, doing the networking thing. That was a big thing that I think everybody always hammered into your head. It was like, if you want to make it in this business, it's all about who you know. And that was all. It felt like that was so fundamentally against my nature, you know. I don't know, walking up to somebody at an event and trying to sell myself. And then when I got out here, it's funny because I actually think that's the worst possible advice you could give someone. Well, I don't know. Because you get out here, and the conventional wisdom is always, all right, you're going to get out here and you've got to get a job as an assistant. Or a production assistant, you know. How do you do that? Well, like I said, there's no Indeed. It's literally just you got to meet the right person. So I found that turned me into a very vapid, fake individual, like a lot of people out here, because, you know, I would literally be talking to people with an agenda, with a specific agenda, like, okay, I got invited to a party. At the party, my friend's boyfriend is going to be there, who is a production assistant. I need to talk to him, and I need to enact my 3-month plan to become his friend, so that eventually he can get me employed on a you know, get my foot in the door. You know, and that's what everybody always says. Sorry. The hardest part is getting your foot in the door. Once you're in there, then it's a lot easier for you, you know. And I still never, that still never really happened, because I think I came out here and then the pandemic happened, which pretty much, I think, killed any semblance of what we understood to be the entertainment industry, you know. And it's sort of died a very slow death since then. It may come back, I don't know, but right now, I would say there has arguably, unfortunately, really never been a worse time to be a young person who has dreams of making it in the entertainment industry. And if you're not really familiar with what I mean when I refer to that, I'm talking about, you know, movies, television, comedy, you know. But also, I would say that now social media is such a huge part of it. What time is it? God almighty. I can't stay too long because traffic is going to be... Alright, it's only... Well, I have a little while. It's noon. I live on the east side of town. So, basically, if I go to the beach, I have to leave before 2 o'clock. If I leave after 2 o'clock, especially on a Friday, I'd say it's more like 1 o'clock. The traffic will be so bad that it will be completely... It'll take 4 hours to get from here to my house. No traffic, 3 a.m., it takes 20 minutes. Anyway. Alright. I'm sorry, but I have to go to the bathroom. Alright, hello everyone, I'm back from the bathroom. Back at the beach. where was I? So I moved out here and was very happy. But I was working at, actually, you can see, okay, I kind of skipped over a lot. I guess I could talk a little bit about, so when I lived in Savannah after graduating from SCAD, that was around the time that I was making the videos that some of you may have seen. They're on YouTube. Somebody found them and put them on YouTube. That's Dan Hentschel's old TV ads. And technically, they were not television ads, although I'm flattered that you would think that that's what they were. They were social media ads. So my job was very stupid because, it would be in Savannah. If there was like a Mexican restaurant or a local gas station chain, they would pay several $1,000s to the agency that I worked at to create social media advertisements. And they would get, maybe it was like they would go on Facebook. It would be me doing one of those videos like you see. I was not in charge. This was my first job out of college. I made the same amount of money that I was making when I was a host at a restaurant, basically. But it was like a job doing what I was supposed to do, in my industry, which So I was like, well, I guess that's good. It wouldn't be the beach without a fucking kid screaming. So, they would go on Facebook, get maybe 2 likes each. I was in charge of doing pretty much everything. I was on camera for some things like you saw, but a lot of the stuff I was behind the camera. That job was very, I don't know. It was fine. You can also go and see when I worked at it was called you could see that, actually, Eddie, bleep that. I don't want to give them advertising. They do not deserve it. Fuck them. Because they fired me. They fired me. Actually, I got fired from both of those jobs. Technically speaking. They fired me. Well, whatever. They fired Oprah, too. I moved to LA. And nothing really happened. I sort of twiddled my thumbs for a couple years. The first little inkling of anything was I started posting on TikTok. And a video that I made about sardines went viral. I think it maybe got 100,000 views. But for me, that was, I had never had more than 10 people watch something I made, so that was very exciting. So then I said, okay, I gotta try to keep this going here. That was, I guess, if you look at it a certain way, that was the foot in the door moment for me. And it didn't come from someone else, it came from an algorithm, But that was really when I was like, all right, I gotta hitch a ride to this rocket and blast off here. It'll probably involve, it was very much sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of content. But I was like, I'll do this, get to a place where I can elevate it, do something else. That's always sort of been my business model is this expands the audience, gets you to the next place and the next place and the next place. So that was sort of basically just shock value, me eating the grossest food that I could possibly think of. So I would get canned squid and put it on an Uncrustable, or there's flies everywhere now. Canned squid and put it on an Uncrustable. That sort of stuff. And then, I sort of started moving on from that and doing other things, which made people very upset. I think I've talked a lot about how, people get very upset when you stop doing, most content creators, I think, get stuck doing the same thing, and then when people get bored of that thing, they don't, they get sort of dropped and lost in the sea of endless entertainment. So that really, from the very beginning, I've always been very, very conscious of trying to not let that happen. And I so far have been successful. It's an uphill battle because you've got to pretty much constantly be thinking into the future a little bit, And I would not say that, I don't know. My point is, people really don't like it when you stop doing the thing that they're expecting and the thing that they want, because that's really all you are to them. Even though the thing that they think they want, they didn't know existed until you gave it to them. And you only arrived at that from experimenting with things that didn't work. This is something that I talk about on my Patreon plug in the inner circle all the time. And you have got to be willing, even though it's very scary, to abandon what you're used to and be willing to sort of do things that don't work or kind of suck or aren't really working. And because what you're doing there is you're developing, you're exploring, and you're experimenting, and that is how you find the next thing that works. Once you find that, you refine that, So I think for a while I did a type of content that was sort of like a relationship advice. I was a funny therapist, satirical therapist. And so I would give relationship advice to people. And the relationship advice was like gaslighting and manipulation and, things like, if you've seen that meme, that's, I put a nicotine patch on my boyfriend when he sleeps with me without him knowing, so that he gets addicted to being with me. It was basically that 1,000 times in different iterations, And when it came time to move on from that, people were very upset too, and they said, well, you're never going to do it. You're only good to us for this. How dare you? And yeah, for a while it felt like maybe I wouldn't. Maybe this was the time that it wouldn't work. But it always did eventually. I always found the next thing, And interestingly, sort of what's kept me encouraged is that the next thing is usually more popular. So it's just a matter of keeping it up until, I don't know. I think I'm going to go in the water again. Getting a little hot. Make sure nobody steals this. Wow, that is even funnier the second time. Hey there, everybody. This is Dan from the future again, popping in because I'm about to go for another dunk in the water. And I just wanted to let you know that every single fucking thing that I said in this video was total horseshit. All of it was a lie. I made all of it up. And you are just as stupid as you always have been if you believed it. Now, I'm about to sit back down in my chair and try to tell you that it was the truth. I'm going to be very sappy and heartfelt. Oh, isn't everything great? But it's a lie. It's all a lie. And it always has been a lie. Fuck you. That lady needs to shut the fuck up. Alright. Well, I think it's time to go. It's getting very crowded and it's getting late. So I need to try to attempt to tie this into some sort of narrative conclusion. Or maybe I don't have to. Maybe it can just be this, because that's the way that life is. I suppose my aim with this video was to try something out of my comfort zone, which was give you a portrait of my actual life without the defense mechanism of, satire, or is it real, is it not real? And I'm sure most people will probably still not be able to have closure on that, but that's fine, because that's just the way that life is. You never really know if people are being genuine or not. I don't think there is one, I don't think it's like everybody has a real them and anything else is a character. I think that we act all the time. We do characters all the time. So, I don't think that any of the me's that I've portrayed at myself as aren't the real me. I think it's just we have the ability to become different people depending on the needs that serve us in the moment. What? That doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Dan, you idiot. Okay. Well, I'm glad to be where I am. And unlike I said yesterday, I'm very lucky because of the moments where I find myself like that are very few and far between these days. Because I'm there's a mural in Santa Monica that says you're exactly where you need to be right now. And I always thought it would be funny, well, this is not to say that homelessness is funny, but if there was a homeless guy sitting under that would be interesting. That'd be a good, food for thought photo. Could take a photo of that and go viral. And pay the guy $50. I'm gonna do that. Alright. This is now starting to feel like exhibitionism. So, I hope wherever you are, whatever you're doing, either you are like me in that you're sitting exactly where you always wanted to be, or you know where that would be. And if you don't, then I hope you would find it. Because that's really, at the end of the day, the only thing that makes life worth living. Because like I've said, there isn't a lot. But I don't think that's true, actually. I think there is a lot that makes life worth living. Alright, this is getting stupid. Goodbye.